All right, it is now 11:42, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, so yeah, good afternoon. Actually, good morning. It's not quite afternoon. So good morning and welcome to our session on accessing ACS microdata through MDAT. My name is Amanda Klimek, and I'm joined by my colleague Maria Valdesera for today's presentation. But by what I've heard, you all she might be a familiar face today. Kudos to her um, for hopping on this right after a backtrack presentation. So to go over some of today's outline, I'm going to first introduce you to some microdata access basics, and this will include going over some public use microdata and the availability of ACS data in MDAT. And that includes some of the limitations of the microdata access tool. And finally, I'll hand it over to Maria, who will provide some examples of how to build tables in MDAT through a live demonstration. So finally, we'll leave a few minutes for any outstanding questions you have about the tool. But if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section of your chat. It'll say it's a little Q&A on top, and I'll be going through those as Maria's presenting too. So to start off, MDAT is a free-to-use, user-friendly tool that allows you to make custom tabulation using topics in ACS. And to ensure the confidentiality of ACS respondents, the Census Bureau has to balance geographic detail with detail in the data, which is why we make public use microdata available. And there are more than 250 variables on a single PUMS person record. That means we can't identify as small geographies in the PUMS as users might hope, but we can put the region, division, and state on the file, and of course the nation. But the only other geography is something called a public use microdata area, or a PUMA, and we'll go over that throughout the presentation and the demonstration. PUMS isn't designed for statistical analyses of small geographic areas, but PUMAs can still be used for focused analyses in counties and cities of 100,000 plus people, as well as many metro areas. So let's look into public use microdata a little further. The data is anonymized, so there's no personally identifiable information associated with it. Since the Census Bureau protects the confidentiality of our respondents by removing identifiers, these microdata files permit users with special data needs to prepare virtually any tabulation. And these microdata files are accessible through data.census.gov/MDAT, which we'll be diving into today. But they're also available through our application programming interface, or API, which is a pretty cool new feature. And they're also available through download on our file transfer protocol site. And I'll show you that in case that's something you're interested in. So if you're already familiar with the ACS program and its data, you know that we meet many of the needs of data users, but not all of them. So for example, consider this table, which is titled Detailed Occupation for the Full-Time, Year-Round, Civilian Employed, Female Population, 16 years and over. That's a lot of variables. So to create every estimate in this table, we use responses from a combination of 6 different questions on the ACS that ask about occupation, employment status, weeks worked, hours worked, sex, and age. However, you may be interested in data for a different population or at a different level of detail than what's available here. So the Census Bureau produces these PUMS files precisely so that data users with varying needs have the ability to conduct their own analysis. Specifically, PUMS allows you to create custom tables to get a greater level of detail than what the standard tables offer, create new variables using unique combinations of person and or housing variables. A very common one people do is age groups, if they want different age groups than what's available through the standard tables, and conduct sophisticated statistical analyses that allow you to analyze the relationship between variables. ACS data products are released 1 year after the data are collected, and the PUMS is a publicly available subsample of ACS records. I know subsample was a pretty hot buzzword the other day during the plenary sessions. So hopefully that sounds familiar to everyone. 1 year PUMS estimates are a subsample of data collected over a calendar year and constitute approximately 1% of all U.S. households in total, whereas the 5-year PUMS collects the data collected over 60 months and constitute approximately 5% of all U.S. households. In summary tables, such as the one shown on top, individual records are categorized and weighted to create an estimate for the larger population. So a lot of the work has been done for you. So for this example, statisticians at the Census Bureau have taken the records of all respondents living in Louisiana who indicated that a male in their household works in a computer and mathematical occupation, grouped them together and weighted them to create an estimate of all the males in Louisiana working this occupation category. And these statisticians have also calculated and provided the margin of error for this estimate. And just a fun fact, the Census Bureau uses a 90% confidence interval for margins of error. By contrast, the microdata below shows a sample of those records that the statisticians used. Here you can see that one person who responded to the ACS in Louisiana is a male web developer. To create an estimate, the data user must take all of this raw data and follow the same steps that the statisticians did in the example above. And that's why MDAT is so great, because it does a lot of this work for you. So ACS data available in MDAT ranges from 2005 to 2021 for the one-year estimates and 2009 to 2021 for the five-year estimates. This data is available at the nation, region, division, state, and PUMA level. The Census Bureau plans to release the 2022 ACS one-year PUMs on October 19th, 2023, and the 2022 ACS five-year PUMs to follow on January 25th, 2024. So PUMAs are areas with a population of at least 100,000 people, which is large enough to meet disclosure avoidance requirements. And these are determined after each decennial census. They're defined by either the state data center or, in some cases, the Census Bureau's regional geography staff. And I know this is going to be a question. So, for example, PUMAs that were redefined after the 2010 census were first used in the 2012 PUMS files. So, we've had another decennial census since then. So the 2020 PUMA definitions will be introduced in the 2022 PUMS files. And the two maps on the right emphasize that PUMAs are truly built based on population and not on geographic size. And these maps are shown at the same scale. So you can see that most of the PUMAs in Wyoming are larger than the PUMAs in New Jersey, since it's a geography based on population. So the site doesn't currently have the functionality to calculate means, it does do means, calculate medians, percentages, or margins of error, combine geographies within MDAT, combine person and housing variables, show data over time in a single view, calculate an average over time for monthly CPS data sets, and create new variables from existing variables, including applying inflation adjustment variables like aging, which is adjusted income, to dollar values. And so, as I mentioned earlier, if you need to do some of these advanced analyses on PUMS files beyond what MDAT can cover, based on that limitation slide, you can access the PUMS files in CSV or SAS format through the Accessing PUMS data page on census.gov/ACS. But there's some great benefits to the tool, which is that you can create these custom tables that provide more topic detail compared to a pre-tabulated table on data.census.gov. So earlier when I showed you, there's all those records, and if you want to start to do some analyses on them and get some summary information about them, this is a really great tool to do that. You can save and download your results easily. It even generates API queries, which I think is pretty cool. And there's no need to purchase or learn complex statistical software. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Maria, and she will give you a demonstration of the tool.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm actually going to switch off my camera. I was having a little bit of bandwidth problems, so I want to make sure everything loads properly. But I'll just share my screen now and pick up where you left off. All right. And now we have, so hi everyone. So I'm just going to get started here. We're going to do two demonstrations of the Microdata Access tool. So the first, I'm just going to be showing you how to get some means of transportation to work data by detailed industries. That's professional, scientific, management, and administrative and waste management services in Tennessee based on the ACS 5-year.
Sorry to interrupt, Maria. Are you screen sharing right now?
Yes, I should be.
We haven't seen that come up yet.
Are you able to see it now?
Can you try? Yes, now it's coming up.
Okay, so sorry about that. It was just the last screen that Amanda shared, so nothing new on that one slide, but I'll make sure to show it again.
And we're seeing your Google search screen.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you so much. Sorry about that. So we're just going to go straight into MDAT. So that's at data.census.gov/MDAT. Oh, and I wanted to mention this too beforehand, before I started. So I do want to show this slide again. So this is an annually released pre-tabulated ACS table that provides data about individuals who worked from home for 13 industries. But again, we're going to create a table that has one for more detailed industries. So I just wanted to show that slide for everybody. Thankfully, PowerPoint is working now. So again, we are going to go into data.census.gov/MDAT. Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge are our preferred browsers for this tool. So the first thing we're going to do is select our data set and vintage. So I'm going to click on the ACS 1-year estimates, and you can see that this comes up for all the data sets. So we have 1-year and 5-year for Puerto Rico as well, and then it gets into the CPS supplements. But for right now, I'm just going to select the ACS 5-year estimates. And 2021 is the most recent vintage that we have available. So I'm going to click the next button in the lower right corner. And so this is where you're going to select your variables. We're looking for 2 different variables this time around. I'm going to type in, so there are 2 ways to find data or variables within MDAT. So the variable search bar allows you to use the actual variable code, if you know that, for different variables that you might have on hand. But if you aren't sure about the variable and you just have like a keyword or a phrase, that's when you would use the label search bar. So I'm going to use the label search bar and just search for work. So we're looking for transportation to work for this specific table that we're building. So we are going to look, and there it is. It is the JWTRNS variable, which is means of transportation to work. If you wanted to see just what values are contained within this variable, you could do so by clicking on the details button. So this shows you all of the different values that are within this variable. You can close it by clicking on it again. And then we're just going to click on it, and that will be added to our data cart up here. So similarly, if you are looking for, our industries that we have available, if you know the variable code, you can type that in, or if you just want to type in industry into the label search bar, we can see that this INDP variable is what we want, and we can actually see that there are 271 values. So we will be limiting this somewhat since we're just looking for a specific number of values within this variable. But I'll show you how to limit your universe in just a second. So we're going to add this variable to our data cart as well. And so now that we have both of our variables selected, I'm going to select our geographies. And I really like how you kind of just move left to right on MDAT, kind of building those different elements of a table on top of one another until you have a full table. So now we're just going to click the Select Geographies tab. I'm going to select State. And then from our list of states, I'm going to select Tennessee. Now you can certainly select multiple states if you'd like, but I'm just going to stick with the one for right now. And then for the data cart here, this is where you're going to limit the universe of your variables. So, if you wanted to get rid of just a few variables, you could, like if I know, okay, there probably aren't that many ferry boat people taking ferry boat in Tennessee to work. You could get rid of that, taxi cab, motorcycle, some of these less used means of transportation to work, you could get rid of by just clicking on the checkboxes, and those will be removed from the table view. But if you have a ton of values and you only want to select a few, you can click on this Include in Universe button, and that will get rid of all of the variables. So I'm looking for variables with the code PRF in front of them, and there should be 19 of them. So here is, it starts with legal services, and I'm going to go all the way down and reselect the ones that I want in my table. So we can see them adding up here, going all the way down to waste management. So there are our 19 values that we want in the table, and all of the other ones will be left off. So now for the table layout, now that I've limited the universes of my variables, this is where we get into the table layout. So this is where we're going to select which variables go into the columns and the rows. So we're going to move our selected geographies up to the columns here and above the selected geographies there. So it's going to be above that means of transportation to work variable there. And then we have our industry variables in the rows with the means of transportation to work in the columns there. Again, limited to our liking. So now that I've confirmed this table layout, I'm just going to click on the View Table button. And this loads our variables with the modifications that we've made. So this is, again, all for Tennessee. If you wanted to expand and see more of the labels here, you can do so by doing that. We'll get into the count values and table cells a little bit later, but you'll mostly want to set them to count. This is just another way to move the variable chips, again, from columns to the rows if you aren't happy with the layout itself. And then you can change the data set, vintage, geography, or the weighting of this table. And then to download or share it, you would click on the download share button. You would download the table view as a CSV, and that will download the layout that you've created with all of the modifications that you made. And if you wanted to extract the raw data from this table, you could either extract it as a CSV or a JSON file. And then you can copy the bookmark. If you use a certain table over and over again, you can do that. And Amanda mentioned that you can also copy the API query as well. So that's just a brief overview of how to create a table within MDAT. I am going to go back into my PowerPoint here, and we will go on to our second example. So this is going to be showing how to recode continuous variables and then select those pumas that we mentioned. So this is a prefabricated table on data.census.gov that shows health insurance status by age. But what if we needed different age categories? Again, Amanda mentioned this before, but this is another great way that you can customize your tables within MDAT. So I'm going to go back into Google Chrome. And then to get back to the main landing page, we're just going to click on the Microdata button, and then I'll take us back to our dataset and vintage selection screen. Now I'm just going to leave the dataset and vintage the way they are using the 1-year estimates. And again, we're looking for 2 variables. So the first actually shows up right at the top here. It's the age variable, AGEP. So once I select that, there is a warning message that comes up that says this variable is continuous and can only go to values in table cells. So we're going to have to create a group or a recode to use it on the table itself. And again, we're going to have to change what is being shown in the values in table cells from average of age back to count. But I'm, again, getting a little bit ahead of myself, so I'll make sure to show you guys that once we get to it. Now for the second variable, I'm just going to type in health insurance into our label search bar, and then we can see health insurance coverage here. So I'm just going to add that to our data cart as well. And then for our select geographies, I'm going to select public use microdata area or PUMA. Now, I will say that this is a defect within the site currently. Usually it does break out these PUMAs into states, and then you can select each PUMA by state if you want. Right now, it is just showing all the PUMAs that are available in the country. So I'm just going to scroll down until I see my District of Columbia PUMAs, and there are 5 of them right here. So I'm just going to add those to our search. There we go. It did take a little bit. Again, we are working on that defect to get that fixed for everybody. But once we have our geography selected, I'm going to move to the data cart. And this is where we're going to create our recode. Now, I'm going to click on the Create Custom Group button, and I'm just going to create 3 groups. So our first group is going to be under 25 years old. Under 25 years old. You can label these however you'd like. I'm going to click on this group to add it, or this label to add it to our group. But instead of our end range being 99, I'm just going to change it to 24. Then I'm also going to include this under 1 year option. So now I'm just going to save the group. And here we have our new group with our first age ranges. So now I'm going to click on this not else or classified group and kind of go through a similar process. So I'm going to do 25 to 40 years old, which is the age range that we were looking for. Change that to a capital. And then we're going to do the same thing between 25 and 99, but we're going to edit our end range to 40. And save our group. So now we have our 2 custom groups. Now finally, we have our last one. I'm going to click on the edit group button one more time. And then we're just going to do 41 years and over for this last group. And so that encompasses between 41 and 99. So we're just going to add that to our last group and then save it. So now we have our age recode with the custom age groups that we've selected. So now I'm going to go to the table layout tab, and here we can see a few different things. Firstly, we can see that this value in table cells option is showing the original age variable. So I'm going to switch the values in table cells from average of age back to count. Then we are going to move the selected geographies up to the columns before. And then we are going to move the health insurance coverage down to the rows and our age recode up to the rows as well. So now we have with and without health insurance coverage with the recoded age variable that we created. So I'm going to click on the View Table button. And here we have our table that we created. So, if you were looking for that total or the number of those 25 to 40 with no health insurance coverage for the total number of geographies that we selected, you can see that that number is 8,821. So again, you can get very customizable when it comes to MDAT, especially with those age groups, which I know a lot of people, have trouble using on the main data.census.gov site. So now I'm just going to show you guys, excuse me there. So there we go. So I just wanted to briefly go over, some other resources that we have available. If you have any time to check out MDAT, you can go to data.census.gov/MDAT and provide any questions or comments to census.data@census.gov. These are also our how-to materials for the microdata access. A great resource. We have PDFs, recorded webinars, video tutorials, everything like that to get you started with MDAT. I'm also going to plug the workshop that I teach. So that is the basics of using the Microdata Access tool. It's longer form and is participatory. So we have some, examples that you can do on your own with MDAT. So, if you still need a little bit more guidance and want to learn more about it, I highly recommend taking the class. And then we also have something from the American Community Survey Office that is a GitHub page. So this shares repositories of code for working with ACS data developed by data users. So all programming languages are welcome. GitHub creates space for increased collaboration, reaching new potential data users, and promoting open source projects. So this will allow for increased knowledge sharing of different ways to work with ACS data. And if you're interested in submitting code to the ACS GitHub, please submit an email to acso.users.support@census.gov. And then I just wanted to plug again our main resources page. If you want to look at any upcoming webinars or recorded webinars, we have those available at Census Academy. And then finally, if you have any other questions on MDAT, the Census API, or our main data.census.gov site, please feel free to reach out to us at census.data@census.gov. And with that, there are a few more minutes left. So if we have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A.
And we just got one question. Are you able to select all the geographies at once?
That is a great question. Unfortunately, as of right now, no. I am hoping that at some point that is a feature that is added to the site, but as of right now, you would have to select them individually.
And to add to that, in that case, I would recommend using the CSV files or SAS files on census.gov/ACS because that will include all of the geographies. The disadvantage is you won't have the nice little interface to be able to. You'll have to use either Excel or some sort of statistical software to work with it.
I'm actually going to jump off, but if anybody wants to join my other data.census.gov session, that is going to be started in just a couple minutes. But I wanted to thank everybody for joining today, and please reach out if you have any questions.
Thanks, Maria. Hey, Amanda, there's one question in the chat. Okay, great. So Amanda just put in the email for people to submit code to the Census GitHub. We have one more minute. Any final questions?
And the GitHub is brand new. We're actually just kind of rolling it out at this conference. So if anybody wants to send us anything, please feel free.